But the only thing you could ever be in is in the now. Everything else is fictitious. It's fake. And it's damaging to the individual.
What is a real man?
It's the opposite of a real woman.
That's a good definition.
So it's discipline first, then motivation. But unfortunately, a lot of people have been taught it's the opposite way. You have to get motivated first. That's what people are used to because things have been too easy for too long. It's just your learned belief. How do you know that's true? Everything can be indoctrinated and changed. We know the history books are modified all the time. So good times create weak men. Sounds like Justin Trudeau.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Well, good day, good evening, wherever you are right now. Let's get straight to the point. What is a man? We talk about what is a woman, and I know some people in the world cannot really tell you what is a woman. They cannot define it based on anything really at this point. What is a man, Glenn?
Well, you're asking me. Obviously, you're asking a man. It's a very simple answer. It's the opposite of a woman.
Why do people have such a hard time defining men and women nowadays?
Well, because they complicate things unnecessarily. And
why is that happening? What do you think?
Well, it's part of an agenda, obviously.
Let's talk about agenda. I want to talk about you first, though. This is, Glenn Herring. Glenn Herring in the studio with us. Glenn Herring actually, Poseidon, Glenn was my first gym coach ever, like in North America specifically. And that was almost 30 years ago now. When you first saw me, I was maybe, I wouldn't say 100 pounds less, but at least 80 pounds less than what I am now. Disclosure, Glenn is a really good friend of mine, and I train with him now, and he's amazing. He's helping me a lot to get through my long-term injuries and get me strong again and overcome some of my pain. And not just physical pain, you're helping me a lot mentally as well. You're helping me to man up, not just in the gym.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, well,
we work together.
Things have changed since we first met 30 years ago. Your business have grown. You sold your business. Gym Zone was I don't know if not most of the popular gyms in Montreal, but definitely a landmark in a way. And it was a men's gym. There's a reason why I asked you what is a man. A lot of bodybuilders went in there.
Well, I would say it was a serious gym. It was a gym, people went there to get results, yes. That's the way I wanted. I mean, if you're going to do something, do it right. It wasn't necessarily a men's gym. We had full of women in there, but girls who were serious about their training and exercising to change the exterior and to help them on the interior too.
What is the difference now? What should see the biggest difference between like when you first started your business in the gym and 30 years ago, Well, no, how long did you actually start the Gym Zone? When was the first gym you opened?
That was, I sold the gym 5 years ago, and I had owned it for 25 years. It was in 1992 when I first opened.
1992.
The first one.
Well, what was the reason why you sold it?
Oh, time to move on, bigger and better things, different areas. I sold it because I had intentions of moving to another place where the place is going to be in America where there are certain more freedoms that are allocated. We're not being suppressed as much.
So what is the biggest difference between 1992 and now, or right up to when you sold the gym? Like what really prompted that? Like, did you see the difference in the people that came to the gym? Is it politics? Is it social economic structure? Like, was it easier to run the gym in 92 than it is now? Or what is the environment? How did the environment change in terms of the business?
Well, I saw an opportunity in 92 in the place where I first opened it. It's because you could make a lot of money in the gym business back then. Mm-hmm. And people were willing to pay to be healthy. But today, you could open a junk food restaurant and you're going to make more money because that's what's in. People are degrading their health. They're looking for the easy way out. They've lost their willpower to succeed. They don't try as hard. It's a cycle of change. Unfortunately, we're changing downward through rough times. Then this stuff will come back to relevance again. And you'll have to change upwards.
That's a good point. What's the biggest change you notice, like in the young men? Because what was the average age in 92 of the people that came to the gym?
It's roughly about the same thing. It's younger people, but there are also some older people too who've been in the game for a long time. I mean, look at us, right? I'm 58 years old, and I love it just as much as I did when I was 18 years old. I started training when I was 15 years old in a gym.
By the way, brothers and sisters, if you don't know who Glenn is 9-time Mr. Canada, right? And bodybuilding competitions. It's not just the guy who had a gym and like, here, give me your money. No, this is the guy who knows things or two about working out, lifting, health, balance, discipline specifically. Wouldn't you say like the discipline is the thing that is different nowadays compared to what it used to be in terms of, self-sufficiency and not just health approach, but in general life approach?
Yeah, it is the main missing part of the equation. The quotient is the discipline. You see, people look for motivation, especially around the 1st of January, to change their life. But you need discipline first, okay? 'Cause to get up and do what you don't feel like doing, but you do it anyways, and you keep doing it, and you persevere. That is discipline. But then you start seeing the changes, and then you get motivated. So it's discipline first, then motivation. But unfortunately, a lot of people have been taught it's the opposite way. You have to get motivated first.
It doesn't really get you for the day. So in the morning when you wake up, you're like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. And that's the motivation you're talking about, right? It's like, oh, it's so nice outside. It's it's raining outside. Oh, I'm tired. But the discipline you're talking about is like, no, today's the day where I go lift my legs. Or today's the day where I go do whatever. And this is the discipline. No matter what, you get up. Of course, you got to be conscious of how you feel too. If you broke your leg, maybe you need to adjust your discipline routine. But
it's also human nature, to do what's easiest as possible. So we don't want to do what's easy. We have to do what's necessary. That's where you learn discipline. It's easy to stay at home, eat junk food, watch TV, and just lounge around. That's the easy thing to do. But it has bad ramifications later on. You can get away with it for a little while, but then you're just hurting yourself unknowingly. But that seems to be the agenda. That's what people are used to because things have been too easy for too long. Okay? So good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times. Bad times create strong men. And then the cycle reverses, starts all over again.
Well, it's always cyclical, right? We in the cycle, roughly, I think they say 70, 80 years apart that, people get really comfortable with. Take World War II, for example. People felt very comfortable. When the war was over, the industry in North America specifically was booming. That's why we call baby boomers too, right? There was a boom of babies after World War II. Everything was happy and peachy. And, you could have a guy working on one salary, right? Where you had a stay-at-home mom, 3 kids. They probably had 2 cars. They had a mortgage, paid off mortgage, most likely. He had a career. And they had a happy life. All kids were taken care of. They were educated. There's no way. People have a hard time surviving now on 2 salaries. Let's say 2 people working, man and wife, and they need to still have some kind of extra activity. It's crazy. By the way, I was in New Zealand 2 years ago at this point. And their life is so expensive. It's like, people always ask me, how's New Zealand? It's like, well, it's just like Canada, just compact. We have kind of similar leadership, nature more or less the same. It's just, packed in one little island, 2 little islands. Except maybe the living expenses is so high there. Like the rent was... I was looking at the rent at one point because I lived there for a year. I was looking at to move out to another place, like 1.5, like I don't know what the equivalent, like 1 bedroom, small, really 1 bedroom apartment was $1,000 a week. And I don't know, in Montreal, it's definitely not those kind of prices. Maybe in Vancouver and Toronto, they're getting up there. But I'm talking about for a place that was really like nothing special. I'm not talking about some really nice condo in the new construction. No, it was in the middle of nowhere. So the idea was the people were working there, the man and wife had to work, but they also had to have side gigs. And they had, I was following a couple of people there, like listen to a couple of podcasts just to get curious about how the life in New Zealand is. And they had such thing as side gigs. Like everybody, what is your side gig? You know, maybe you walking your neighbor's dog. Maybe you're doing some babysitting. Maybe you have a cleaning business on the weekend or something like this. So it's crazy for them to be able to afford, like I mean, like the smallest, I think the minimum house price in like whatever considered ghetto in Auckland, New Zealand was like something like $1 million. And it's not a new construction. It's the house that you still need to put in another $500,000 just to be able to live in it. Like it's garbage. So like this definitely you can see like socioeconomic swing in the Western world. And in your opinion, is it attributed to anything specific?
It's attributed to the devaluation of the currency. In other words, what you're being paid in. These are fiat dollars, are not based on anything. And when governments overspend, they just print more money or borrow more money from a central bank and just go further into debt. If Canadian government were a business, it would be very bankrupt. You wouldn't want to invest in it if it was a publicly traded company. So they can get away with this for so long. And this is why today you need two people to work and bring in income and even have these side gigs, as you were saying, just to maintain some similar resemblance to the same standard of living that they had many years ago. So it's becoming more and more difficult in the family, which is creating stress. If you see what most people fight about is, most people will say it's money. And I would say, well, I tend to believe it's the lack of money, the lack of purchasing power of what you're getting paid in. So we have a cost of a CPI, a cost of living index here, and that's always understated purposely. So now if your salary keeps up with the cost of living, which they haven't even been doing, so you're losing there. So this fiat currency now, we're in the end stages of it.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, there has to be some sort, people call it a reset. People call it, things like that. It's a necessary or a changeover. The last reset we had was in 1971, where they took the American dollar off the gold standard and made it the de facto world currency, the petrodollar.
The petrodollar. Now petrodollar is dying because people start to trade in other dollars,
yes,
another money currency.
And I would do the same thing, knowing what's coming.
What is coming?
Well, the devaluation of the currency. I don't want to get stuck with the currency it's devaluated and won't be able to buy that much.
But also, if you trade in dollars, like we can take Russia, Ukraine for conflict as an example, U.S. specifically and other Western countries sanction Russia, all the trades and cannot trade with Russia in general, due to the sanctions, but also you cannot trade with Russia in American dollars. So the Russia goes and says, okay, let's trade in rubles then. Right. So who's punishing who in this case? If the dollars, if you use a dollar, this never made sense to me. If you use a dollar, if there's no gold standard and it's a petrodollar, but now it seems to me this is actually like a controlled demolition. This is a building 7. This is 9/11. What's going on in the world right now is not, unprovoked attack. It hasn't been. It's been building up for years, and it's not just about between Russia and NATO, between Russia and Ukraine, between Russia and the rest of the world. I think, in my opinion, it's been...
it's engineered.
It's engineered, exactly.
Been engineered. This is part of an
ongoing thing. So the cycles we talked about right now, like, weak man, strong man, strong men create
the castration of the males.
The males
through the chemical supply or through the media, the social media, and the upbringing in the school system, the breaking up of the families. So there's very little leadership anymore. And so countries where the men have been demasculinated, the leaders of these countries can get away with more.
No, but and it is happening. You can see it, and you can see it. And even when people protest, I don't think they know how to protest anymore, really. Well, unless you're Antifa, and then you really know how to protest because you burn buildings and you loot. And that sounds, yeah, I know it sounds racist right now, but it's the fact.
You don't sound, there's a difference between racist and realist. You're just telling what's going on. And now you can be labeled a racist because it's going against the agenda of trying to wake people up for what's really going on. It has nothing to do. Look, there's one race. It's called the human race. We have much more similarities than we do differences. But the Matrix wants us to focus on the differences. And not only to accept these differences, but now not to accept the differences. And during difficult times, where, as you see, people are becoming stressed out. They see their way of living is being eroded away from them, and they don't know what to do. They're feeling very uncomfortable. They tend to take this stress out on each other. They blaming the other person. You know, it's like they did an experiment. You put two rats in a cage, and they get along. But then every hour, you give the cage a little electric shock, so the rats get a little shock, a quick shock. Within 24 hours, the rats are trying to kill each other because they're blaming the other rat for their own discomfort. Well, we're not rats, but there are certain similarities. You see it every day, what's going on. Hey, you don't believe what I believe, or you don't think what I think, so I dislike you and you're an idiot, and the name calling, and it seems to be coming to a peak.
Yeah, we're being divided intentionally, as you're right, so we can be easier controlled, so we can bicker with each other to see, instead of focusing on the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. You know, like you said before, like, oh, Canadian government, put this trust in the government. By the way, Poseidon, you know the MK Ultra show that we did, and it was kind of all based on trusting the government, how government and CIA and Canadian government and other institutions supported those, human test subject programs without their knowledge to control their behavior. Then, you know, that show got flagged by YouTube, and I had to come out and say, like, not just flagged, it got deleted before I even published it.
Which one?
The MK Ultra show.
Was it the one with the lawyer?
With the lawyer.
No way.
Yes. Before I even published it, I just uploaded it, and they flagged it right away.
Wow.
They flagged it right away, so I had to go back.
And you know his information is correct. He has everything documented.
It's an actual law case.
Wow.
Right, so I had to go and like doctor with some things. I removed it. It's on YouTube now, but the uncensored version of this is on in the podcast format, MP3 format, like Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and all the other things. But YouTube censored this information.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
So we don't live in a free society where we actually talk about things that are factual. And I can't. Why was it censored by YouTube, which is a third party on top of that? Like, who controls this? That's a whole. Like, we'll get into that subject in a second. But we live in a country where we have very little control over our lives. Like my family, face it, my family moved here in '95. That's when we met. '95, yeah, end of '95, you and me met, and we migrated because Russia in '95 was a wild, wild west. Soviet Union fell apart. Gorbachev actually just died a few days ago, and there's a interesting relationship. The West loves Gorbachev because he destroyed the wall, he destroyed the Soviet, he dismantled the Soviet Union, and he was the friend of the West. Russians don't like him, and it's not because he brought the democracy into Russia and that Russians were holding on to authoritarianism and bureaucratic state of the Soviet Union. That's not. They don't like him because he sold Russia to the West, specifically after Soviet Union fell apart. All those oligarchs that eventually got caught up to them. Some of them went to jail, but things got privatized, like the Russian natural resources and the national resources, like factories, like those factories, that billion-dollar factories that were built by the Soviets, were sold to the West for pennies on the dollar, right? The natural resources or access to natural resource was done the same thing. So, basically West took over resources of this, the biggest country in the world at the moment. And it wasn't just Russia; it was all the countries, all the republics of Soviet Union. And so the people don't really have this kind of love-hate relationship with Soviet Union, but they really don't like Gorbachev for a lot, because Gorbachev thought he was on top of the game. He was friends with everyone. He would come out and shake everyone's hand when he was in Germany or United States, etc. He was a populist at the time. But agenda, and it's a public knowledge of United States, was to not only befriend Soviet Union, but actually to destroy that country. It's an official policy at the time, and destroyed for many different reasons, including economic ones.
Sounds like Justin Trudeau.
But Justin Trudeau's doing it to himself. Like, it's not like.
Well, I beg to differ, because I believe that Canada is in a tough position because of Trudeau. He was given the country, the business of running a country with very little debt. And since then, we're in trouble. Our debt to GDP ratio is very high now. We're not used to this. And it's going to have ramifications on the average person. People should realize that civil servants, government, they work for the people. We pay taxes, which pays their salary. They work for us. We don't work for them. We should be uniting together and telling them what to do, what is right, not them telling us how to live our lives. They come from the constituency. They're a part of us. But we have to ask ourselves, what's really going on? Do they work for the constituency, the people who voted them in and who pay their salary? Or they work for another agenda or a higher group that we don't know who they are?
Yes, we do. That's not even denial. Freeland and Trudeau, they both are members of WEF. And I think Freeland is she has particular high post in that organization, which is not even a Canadian organization.
Most people don't even know what the World Economic Forum is. Most Canadians don't have an idea. Or even if you mention it, you just leave them there because maybe they think it's conspiracy theory, or they're overwhelmed just by that little information. But we can start at the grassroots level by waking up the average person to say, hey, you have power. They work for you and I. We don't work for them. We unite together and we tell them the way we want the country, the business of running a country to be run. And obviously it's not doing well. You have the breaking down of the medical system right now, the breaking down of the education system, the breaking down of Canada's monetary system. Everything is happening at the same time. So we're going into an economic storm that most people just see those things happening in other countries of the world. They can just click it on their television and watch, oh, those poor people. Yeah, we're entering in that. It's the quickening is happening. We're in the economic storm, and it's going to get worse. There's no way out. We have to go through the bad to get back to the good. And it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people. I just hope that the pendulum doesn't, during the process, the pendulum doesn't swing the opposite way. And then you have people who are becoming more fascist, like they did in Weimar, Germany. And they blame their problems on a group of people, or the other rat, so to speak.
Well, it's happening now, I think in Canada, it's, those unacceptable fringe minorities, right? It's already been pointed at those people. You'll take truckers, for example, who were protesting for their livelihood. But in U.S., it happened last week with the Biden speech when he said, oh, it's all the Republicans are the domestic terrorists. More or less, he did this whole thing on the red background, which is very symbolic. They do say symbolism will be the end of them. But it's already happening. But let's go back to foundation. It's very interesting what you mentioned on the point. And the foundation is each individual. Each individual is being dismantled. The discipline of each individual, self-sufficiency, self-responsibility, all those things were taken away. And, each individual member comprises of the family. And that's how they destroyed the family, by, devaluing each individual member of that family. Your kids don't belong to you. You hear politicians say that all the time, even in Canada. Celine Dion has a commercial running. I don't know if you ever seen this, Poseidon, where she actually promoting, she's promoting something. I don't want to promote any of her stuff, but she's promoting something, and where she actually straight up says, your kids are not your own. Kids don't belong to you. That's literally the words that come out of her mouth. Well, I agree. You can't own another human being, but what she's insinuating, it's like more of a communist thing, like when I grew up in Soviet Union, we've been taught and conditioned by our education system that you should rat on your parents if they don't toe the party line. And we were, indoctrinated into that by kids' books that telling us stories of kid heroes that sold out their parents, the ones that didn't support communism. So education system is working just fine. I know the medical system is collapsed already, but look at
I'm seeing the commercial, by the way.
Oh, let's play it. Can you play it? Let's just see this.
No, I can't find the full commercial. Only people commenting on it.
Oh, you can see it. What do they say? What are the comments?
Hold on. I don't know.
Mainstreaming abominations, making that normal, the norm.
No. That's the... You want me to play it for... You might get taken down, though.
Okay, then don't play it.
Well, you know what? I'll play it for unmuted, unattendance, the podcast.
You might get taken down for replaying something that's been done by a highly recognized Canadian.
That's a third party thing. Yeah, let's not do this. How dare I do this? But the idea is like,
you might wake up too many people.
Well, yes, that's right. You can see a lot of elements. And the reason why I'm even doing this podcast, it's not because, I'm Alex Sazonov, the 7-foot-tall guy walking the streets, and I just want to be heard because, I'm above everybody else. No, it's not it. I do have a life experience, whereas, I'm not as mature and wise as you are, Glenn, but I lived in 3 different countries, and I don't mean I just visited it. I lived in 3 different countries. I paid taxes in 3 different countries. I was educated. I grew up in Soviet Union. I was educated by Soviet system. I went to school in United States. I have a high education there. I try to live and work there, and then I spent majority of my adult life in Canada. So I have understanding. First-hand experience with people, first of all, with socioeconomic structures, and I also saw the change. I saw the change coming. The craziest thing about was I think United States was my most funnest experience at the age when I was, and it was always fun to me because growing up in Soviet Union, I obviously was not exposed to education propaganda of United States, but mostly Hollywood propaganda, where Soviets were always bad and, for a reason. But when I came to to United States, I played basketball, obviously, right? Because it's racist. It's, because all Russians, we have to play basketball. And the people in the stands were chanting, USA, USA, who won the Cold War? Who won the, things like this with chants. And it was actually fun because in the spirit of the game, it gave me this kind of boost. It's like, so when I was winning the game, obviously I was playing for American team. Catholic League to me was sports have not supposed to do anything with race, nationality, or politics. Not anymore. But at the time, it was fun to me to be in this environment because it was a very competitive environment. And I know they were saying those things not necessarily to be mean to me, but they're trying to get me off my game, right? Anything to take me off balance so I can miss the next shot, etc. Nowadays, you can't actually chant those things. Why? Because it is actually considered to be offensive and racist to be supportive of United States. I think they remove, like some schools try to remove things like pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which I remember in the Catholic school that I went to, Cardinal O'Hara. We did that pledge every morning, and it was a Catholic school, so we said a prayer as well. So there was some components of pride as well as discipline, spiritual discipline in this kind of educational environment, which I don't think it's the same anymore. Not in most institutions. It's frowned upon, and it's again continues to with destruction of the society.
That's another sign of a weakened society. Yes, where mere words can make a person fall to the ground, like just lose it, and then they can blame their depression on that. The enemy is not the other person. The enemy is inside of you. We do things to ourselves that we would never allow somebody else to do to us. Anything that good that happens to us, we take responsibility for it. We wave our hands. Yeah, it's all me. Anything bad that happens to us, or we perceive it as being bad, we point the fingers. We blame it on somebody else. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. This happened. It's not my fault. But when you're pointing your finger, remember, there's 3 fingers pointing back. That's to give you an incentive to want to look inward and say, for every action, there's a reaction. Why am I allowing this reaction to happen? That's not a sign of strength. It's a sign of weakness. So weakness seems to be in. We don't need any more weak people in the world. We need stronger people. We need leaders. But if you grow up in this system that's happening now, it's being implemented and imposed on you, so you learn that it's normal to be weak. Can't challenge the throne. So it keeps the people running things, keeps them in power, and you don't learn anything about it because you're being entertained with mindless stupidities. A lot of social media stuff, and that they've been blaming that on people not being able to function normal in society. They're depressed all the time. Why? Well, simply because their ego is running them. Okay, the false you. How are you ever going to be happy when you don't have the real you running things? They're always in comparison mode, and then they never feel good enough. Well, that's a pathway to a horrible existence. Why would you want to be on that pathway? It's a choice.
And it's a cyclical choice. Seems like people continue to do it to themselves, and it's kind of psychotic because if you keep doing it to yourself and the result is the same, that's not a proper mental behavior. Actually, interesting question about breads and circuses you mentioned. I just thought about it. When I grew up, again, going back to my stories, in the United States, we didn't have social media at my age. I'm 43. I wish we did because I would show you some of my dunks. I used to be able to do things like jump, which it's really hard to get off the bed sometimes in the morning. But I'm not that bad. But
that's because I'm overtraining you now?
Exactly. Oh, okay. My legs are sore every
That's Glenn's
day.
fault.
That's Glenn's fault. That's your fault. Oh, I'm pointing at myself. But there's
me, myself, and I with the other 3 fingers.
I remember. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if I was here in Canada, but in the United States they had like Inquirer and in Philadelphia where I live, Philly Inquirer and the Daily News. Half of the paper, whatever, regular news, politics, economy, cultural stuff, local stuff. And then the other half of the paper, you can flip it. It was the new sports section. So that was the circuses. And there was half of the paper. And I remember this is the stuff we read. Well, first of all, that was our social media. You get in the morning, you eat your cereal, you open the page and you see the articles from the last night's game and you see your picture and you read, I can read my name. Look, they're saying some nice things about me. You can read the stats. You can see other people's stats. You can see your team stats and stuff. So that was the social media at the time. Poseidon, question to you. Do you watch sports at all anymore? Like other than MMA or any kind of boxing?
Here and there, if it comes on, I don't go out of my way. If Greece plays soccer, I am all in.
But that's your
That's why he's been MIA in the sports scene. because Greece hasn't been doing too well in soccer, the World Cup the last couple of years. Unfortunately,
I wait. If they qualify, then I'm watching. But other than that, I don't really have an allegiance.
But you don't have.
I'm happy. I'm happy when I don't know, Canada wins in hockey or the Habs win in hockey, you know. But I'm not like a crazy fan. I won't go out of my way to watch.
Can you name 3 hockey players from Montreal Hubs?
No.
Can you name one?
No. Carey Price.
Is he still play?
I have no idea.
Exactly, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm on the same level. Can you name anybody from the hockey team?
From the new Canadians?
Yeah.
They keep changing so fast now. Because they're bottom feeders. They it's a tough time to get back up again.
Can you name any athlete that's from any professional sport?
Adetokounmpo, Greek basketball player.
No idea who that is.
He's a Greek basketball player.
Where does he play?
I think he played for the Milwaukee Bucks, but he plays for Greece as well. He's a black Greek that grew up in Greece, and he made it to the NBA.
Oh, interesting, right? Black Greek, Greeks and
the Greek freak they call him.
Greek freak. Oh, that's racist, ain't it? But the point is, the circuses have changed, and the show that we did on MK Ultra, obviously that's a control tool bred in circuses. For those of you who don't know, circuses are the Romans had it where they gave you a bread every year, and they had those coliseums for your entertainment. So, you wouldn't pay attention too much to other things that are going on in your life that may not necessarily be positive.
Like the devaluation of the currency.
But now they changed it to something more sufficient. Can you name, Poseidon, another test question? Today you're the red subject. Not that you're red. You're not a red, but, test subject. Can you name 10 social media platforms?
10? I wouldn't say 10.
How many?
I know the basics.
Go ahead.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok now. That's the only ones I know.
What about things like YouTube, Rumble?
I don't consider YouTube social media.
I don't even know what it is. It's a platform, right?
Yeah, it's a platform. I would say it's TV. It's YouTube. It's not. I wouldn't consider it social media.
But they changed it to compete with people like TikTok and Instagram, because now they have those YouTube Shorts, so they can.
Yeah, because TikTok is so easy to consume that I guess it affected YouTube's
attention span. That's why people don't watch sports anymore, because in Twitter, not Twitter. Even Twitter, the message is one sentence long, right? Or TikTok, what's the average video? 10 seconds long, and
also people want the gratification. They want the event. They want the I don't know how to explain this. They want the highlight instead of the story. Do you understand? So they want the
dopamine release.
There you go. Yeah, they want the what happens instead of the what led to this. You understand? They want the result instead of the journey.
Nobody really gets into it. When I was going to school in the U.S., my English was very limited. It's still very limited now, as you can tell. But I couldn't get through the book at the same speed as most Americans could. So I would read Cliff Notes. That literally, not because I was cheating, but that was the only way I could get through the book in the same amount of time. But now it seems to, in college, in college I did it because I was lazy. But nowadays people don't get into the meat of things. They don't want to know that. And that's why probably people don't really know what's going on in the world. And I think for few reasons. One of the reasons, they are too busy trying to survive because their rent is expensive, their gas is expensive, the insurance is expensive, the cost of living is high.
It's become a compulsion. Like drugs, alcohol, gambling, porn, video, everything has become a compulsion. It allows you to temporarily check out from the discomfort of everyday life because they don't know how to deal with it. So sports has become like that. You see it, grown men paying a lot of money for a uniform, for a jersey with another man's name on the back of the jersey. This person playing his sport, he's a master at his game. He's well recognized and he's being remunerated very well for it. He gets up, he eats, he trains, he does whatever he has to do to excel at his sport, to stay at the top of his game as long as he can. Like Brady, Tom Brady, for example. The man's 45 years old. Still has a passion for the game. But I don't understand how a man can actually spend money and put another man's name who's on his game on his back. And you have to look, well, what about you? What are you doing? So you spend all your time treating this athlete as though he's a god? What about yourself? That's self-empowerment. You have to lead yourself. You have to be a man.
Yeah, oxymoronic, right? The biggest thing. Let's go watch sports at the sports bar. Right? I never understood that. Let's go drink, smoke, and eat greasy food to support a famous and favorite athlete.
Also, you're complaining about money. It's tough on the family, but you have enough money to go and do that every weekend. As long as they have reality TV, sports, the weekends come, they don't have to work the job that they hate going to, and then they can liquor themselves up a little bit and be entertained, mindless, and then do the whole thing again on a Monday. Start over.
But sports have lost it. I think the professional sports are losing more and more every year in terms of audience because of things like politics. Because they used to be supposed to take you away from politics, but now there's a lot of political agenda in the sports, a lot of wokeness, a lot of political messages, and so people don't want to watch this. Like, I don't watch sports. If I did, I wouldn't watch it for the politics. I would watch it opposite. I would watch it for competition. I would watch it for the human achievement, entertainment.
It's becoming entertainment. It's becoming like television. It's almost engineered also. You get pro athletes. You're getting paid millions of dollars, for example, to catch a football in the end zone. That's what you practice. That's what you do every day. That's what you're supposed to do. Catch the football in the end zone, and then it seems like they practice the dance afterwards to get attention. They're starved for recognition and attention. It doesn't make sense. You're a pro athlete. You're an elite being.
But sports are dying to me. Like, I used to watch sports for entertainment. I couldn't tell you when was the last time I watched the Olympics, and it's not because I'm Russian, and Russian no longer recognizes the.
No one ever really watched the Olympics, right? The Olympics was never that popular.
I think I would. I think that comes in my background, in my conditioning. Olympics was huge because I was actually raised in the Olympic program. I was part of the Russian Olympic, Soviet Olympic program. So to me, it was pride of the nation. So when we watched, we actually did pay attention. How many medals did Soviet Union or Russia got and everything else? So it is an element of pride, but it's also an element of business in there because, if...
Do you think that it's because of the lack of patriotism?
What's going on now? Why people don't watch it? No,
that's why people don't, like with sports, they're not as into sports as they used to.
That was my original point. That's what I'm trying to say. Circuses have changed for variety of reasons, including that one.
And the Olympics, the origination of the Olympics was a distraction too during the war.
Yeah. Hitler went to like one of the first ones, right? No, not the first one.
No, I'm talking about ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece, yes.
No, it wasn't a distraction.
It was during a war where they took a break, and then they held an Olympic game to entertain the people, and that was the original one. And then
but I don't think it was to distract from the war. It was like war was a constant thing in ancient Greece. I think that was the Romans more that wanted to distract with what was happening in the empire, because Greece was never really an empire. It was city-states at the time. So there was the Greece has been in constant war since forever. I think it was just for all the city-states to come together and establish dominance. Who has the most dominant athletes? So therefore, since we have the most dominant athletes.
Speaking of dominant athletes, tell me, why was the original Olympic athletes in Greece all naked?
Because they also had to show who had the biggest dick.
That was a competition.
Oh, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Clearly, it was wrong. No, like imagine that was the part of the qualifier. Like you have to actually like to make it. You gotta like you show your manhood quite literally.
I don't know why they were naked.
They invented it, man. You know, they always that's an ongoing joke. Greeks invented it. You know what they invented? Take a clay. You know,
anal sex.
Oh, LGBTQ in general.
Oh no.
No. Okay.
I will not.
You will not go that way.
No, we will not.
Didn't the Greeks practice homosexuality?
Of course, every.
No. But I mean, wasn't it part of like the brotherly friendship, love kind of thing in the army?
I think ancient Spartans, to a certain extent, I feel like we like. But a lot of stuff gets lost in translation. Like Alexander the Great, people thought he was bisexual or gay. Because Greeks have like 9 words for love, whereas opposed to like in the English language, we have 1.
Yeah, Philadelphia, city of brotherly life. What is it? Philos? Fellow? What's the love?
Well, we have.
He's Greek too. Are you Greek, Glenn? Well, how do you know so much about Greeks?
Well, it's just a broader way of knowledge. It's
I was joking. Don't compromise yourself.
Vision has to be a little bit more encompassing.
No, I like Greek people. I love Greek food. I like Greek culture.
Yeah, so there's eros, which is romantic, philia, which is intimate and authentic friendship, erotos, playful, flirtatious love, storgi, which is unconditional, familial love.
So they invented it. See, I told you they invented it.
So we still have 7 Greek words for love. So like, especially when people were digging shit up and they were finding scriptures of the Greeks, and they see like, oh, he had a very intimate friendship with fucking George and fucking Nick. You know what I mean? They thought, oh, these 2 men were gay, but we have different words. We have literally 7 different words for 7 different types of love.
It was misinterpretation.
I think it was misinterpretation.
So it wasn't that they were gay. That was just they misinterpreted.
There was homosexuality in Greece, like every other, like the Romans as well, like everyone. It's just that because we had so many words for love, I think it was misinterpreted.
See, I learned something new today.
I think I could be talking out of my ass because I'm Greek.
But but that's talking out of his ass. Look at this.
Now you know. But that's the thing about knowledge. Okay, what's the difference between wisdom and knowledge?
Well, wisdom you acquire through experience, and knowledge you acquire through studying and.
Well, you become wise when you realize most knowledge is not true. It's just your learned belief. How do you know that's true? Everything can be indoctrinated and changed. We know the history books are modified all the time.
One thing I do know about the ancient Greeks, though, we didn't really have, we had homosexuality. We had a word for it, like homophilos, which is the official word for gay in Greek. But like, it wasn't really like oh, he's gay, he's straight, he's bi. It was just oh, that's what this person likes. There wasn't boundaries. It was there wasn't like you're in this box. You know what I mean?
It was description of your behavior in one way.
It was less divisionary.
You go. It was kind of like, oh, this person prefers this. You know, like the Athenians preferred little boys. No, it's a joke. But yeah, it was more like that. It wasn't really LGBTQ, because that's the LGBTQ is the opposite. They put everyone in a box. You're whatever the
you're fuck. Separate. You're separate. Exactly. You're individual. Yeah,
there was no separation into, you know.
We wanted to be all accepted now, but now we're different. Like, you know, Trudeau came out and did like, oh, you know, we have an issue with diversity. Here's $100 million to. He couldn't even pronounce the acronym.
No.
But you know, it's all for all inclusivity, except, you know, unless you're unvaccinated, then you don't get a letter. You know, what letter do unvaccinated get in, you know, the inclusivity acronym? They don't. In Trudeau's government, they don't. And again, it's not this kind of podcast. We don't want this one get censored by YouTube either. Well, that's a different subject on its own. But you can tell, like, we can have a normal conversation here between 3 guys without getting cutting each other throat. We all have 3 different backgrounds and 3 different age groups, 3 different generations, and we can find a common language without jumping each other. We can have our own opinions. It seems very hard for people to find peaceful conversation nowadays. Like you said, everybody jumps at each other's throats right away, and it's all about divide and conquer. And
not allowed to laugh anymore. But like comedy is being challenged. It's like no, they don't want you to be happy. Oh no, or you see other people that say, I don't like this guy. He's always happy. Well, you want to be around people who are happy, and because they brighten up your day. Maybe you can learn something about that and change your own life.
Well, comedy is a good medium.
A lot of people, what's going on today, it's affecting people's character. And your character it becomes your reality. Okay? So your personal reality is an extension, basically, of your personality, which is derived from your character. Well, this is derived from everything that's happened in your past.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're actually both wrong as to why the Olympics started. I'm reading here that it was part of a religious festival to honor Zeus.
Are you reading that on Wikipedia?
No.
No? How do you know what you're reading is real?
How do I know? Well, it makes sense, and it's on Google, so.
Yeah, right. So that's the thing. Google censored MK Ultra podcast.
Yeah.
We talked to actual attorney regarding the subject, and they censored it. Right. So this is who knows.
Don't be too knowledgeable.
It was an Olympia,
which is around.
Wise. It was an Olympia, which is around my parts, where like my parents are from. It was a site where people went to worship their gods, basically. So they would have
Mount
these
Olympus,
games.
right?
Yeah. No. It was nowhere near Mount Olympus. It was just it was worshiping Zeus, basically. It was they were holding basically games for the gods.
So it was a way of worshiping the ownership.
It was a way of worshiping, a way of showing like this is what I'm reading everywhere on different websites. So it seems like
it must be true. It's everywhere.
It seems like that's what it is.
But the past 2 years events seem to be everywhere too. There was the exact same information till it wasn't anymore. Till Putin became a world's doctor and he healed. He healed the virus. Just what he did. We don't talk about that anymore. We talk about the war.
Wikipedia says as well they were held in honor of Zeus.
Okay, so internet says it must be true. So we accept it. But thank you, Poseidon. This was problem. Very, very knowledgeable. Poseidon is an in-house Greek specialist, authority on Greek culture and everything to do with Greeks.
No, I'm not an authority on Greek culture. That's absurd. I'm just saying because even I was wrong.
Well,
I was wrong.
This is being a man, by the way, accepting responsibility and saying, even I'm wrong.
Even my assumption was
wrong.
Yeah, even my assumption was
Poseidon,
wrong. So
in my eyes, you're a real man when you're able to admit your mistake. Thank you for being a man today.
Only with certain people. I never admit I'm wrong with Pantelis.
Well, that's because he's wrong all the time.
There you go.
Going back to the real man question, like I think the man has been. Do you have an advice? Like, how do you? Obviously, it starts with the individual. Like, we have some younger people listening to our show too. Do you have an advice for how to start becoming a self-sufficient person, a happy person, an individual who successful in life in all aspects, physical, material, mental, social?
Well, you could start by watching the movie The Matrix and then start asking some questions about that. The whole philosophy about red pilling. And then you can go and learn more about the red pilling men on the internet. And you'll see the difference of what masculinity is and what is being labeled as toxic masculinity today. And so you see, this is a form of castrating the males. Like I said before, whether it's chemical or social or within the family environment or the entertainment industry, you have to resist against that because this is a controlled agenda. When you don't know, this is your norm. But when you wish to know, now you start searching for the truth, which is very important. You know, I ask people, how many sides to a coin? And they'll always say 2. Well, I beg to differ because a coin is a 3-dimensional object. So there's one side, the heads, the tails, and the other side, and then there's the outside. So it's good to spend life on the edge so that you can keep your eye on one side, your eye, ear, everything, all your senses on one side, and you keep your eye and other senses on the other side too. And that way you can prepare yourself and formulate your own opinions, which is what a man is supposed to do. That's how a man grows up. Unfortunately, today we have a lot of men child. Yes, physically they're growing up, but mentally, it's the biggest. Being in the gym, you talk to a lot of women and they say that's one of the biggest problems. There's no more real men left.
What is a real man?
It's the opposite of a real woman.
That's a good definition. Well, I actually agree with you, and also like advice. Sometimes you don't know where to start the journey of like discovering yourself, but you got to start somewhere. You know, discover your physical body. Go to the gym. You know, start learning simple things, but not just don't go to gym for emotions, but go to the gym with the purpose. And I think that's a good advice that I learned from you. A lot of people that do go exercise now, they do it because it's also a popular thing to do. It's a social environment. You know, you have to go for external. You got to have muscles because, you know, girls like muscles, you know.
That's the show part. But then there's the reality part. It makes you healthy. It's the greatest sport in the world because people do resistance training in a gym to make them better at their professional sports. So therefore, that's the common denominator of all those sports is actual resistance training in a gym. And it's good for younger people done properly, always done properly. It's good for women, it's good for men, and it's good for older people too. It keeps the bones thicker, more supple. You have you're able to relax better, you sleep better, so you can handle adversity better, conflict, relationships. It seems to diminish. A lot of people come into a gym and, I had a rough day, this, that. And I said, you know what? Leave your problems outside. Just come in and give it a good one. I guarantee you, when you go outside, your problems will still be there, but they'll mean a lot less to you.
But they don't do that. What do? They come to the gym with a phone.
Well, that's another reason why the people are not getting the same results as they used to be, as they used to get. And they're being distracted. And so they're always somewhere else. They're never in the present. So they're either under the effect of something that happened to them yesterday, or they're worried about tomorrow. But the only thing you could ever be in is in the now. Everything else is fictitious. It's fake. And it's damaging to the individual. I see this, it's ridiculous. People, if they put as much time in the gym actually exercising as they do on their phone, which is mostly being used for social media. It's not because they own multi-conglomerate corporations or something like that.
And they're checking the stocks, you know.
No, they're just being entertained with mindless stuff.
And it's not even music, right? I understand you come with your phone, that's because you use it as a music player or something like this. But you're right. Most of the time, it's the texting between the sets and everything else. And it is a distraction. And it takes away from your workout time, takes away from being in the moment, like you said. You're not focusing on what it just becomes everyday part of the day.
Increases the chance of getting hurt because you're not fully conscientious, you're not focused. And so the results you're going to get are not as significant either.
And result is not just coming there for physical exercise. Result is coming there for mental.
Everything. It's everything together. It's to improve your life. It's, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, psychological. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, let's make the most of this human experience. Live like a human being, not like a trash compactor.
Tell me about your philosophy. What do you think? Like, what do you think this is all about? Like, why we're here on Earth? What is Earth? I know you talk about Matrix, and obviously you perceive this to be
you're asking the G man, but that type of a question you have to ask the real G. That's God, the provider, the infinite field of intelligence. Call it what you want, but we're not it. There's something much higher, much more aware, the creator, whatever you want to call it. These are the questions you have to ask this entity.
That's a way to cop out, like this is a non-answer answer. I'll roll with it fine now. What's the future has in stake for you?
Personally? My own future?
Yeah. Like as an individual, as a human being here on Earth. How do you perceive this? Like, how do you, obviously things are changing and not necessarily for the better. How do we stay in the lane? How do we overcome the storm?
Well, we're doing it. And all we have to do is try and get another, just 20% of men in the Western culture to start wanting to get it together too. And then 20% of people will create 80% of the change. But unfortunately, but by the time we get to the change and get back to the blue sky, we're going to have a rough time. I'm not a pessimist. I look at myself as being an optimistic realist. But if I don't like certain things, it doesn't mean I'm going to run away and hide. That's a challenge. And that's what men are supposed to do. They're supposed to raise to the challenge. Rise up. Win. Whatever you have to do, but you have to win as a man. That's it. It's not going to be easy, but so what? This is how you learn about yourself during times of adversity. Maybe you get people who get too offended and they break down and they crash just because they hear words. Well, that's a sign of a weak human being. You have to strengthen yourself up. You have to be more resilient. And unfortunately, this is what happens in all advanced societies, is life gets too easy for too long. And you forget what made you. It happens in sports, for example. You have a boxer. He's the champion of the world. And, he came from poverty or rough times, and he learned to be a fighter, and then he made money from it, and he was promotable, this and that. And then he started, with all this money, it corrupted his mind. He took him off his game. You go off your game, and then you lose. Well, then some people say, I lost because I'm not on my game anymore. So they return back. That happened to me. I competed in the Canadas for 10 years in a row. I won for the first 3-4 years, and then 1 year I came in second. So I went home after and I said, no, I don't like this. This is not right. I wasn't, not the regular Glenn. There's a distraction going on. The next year, I made sure that I was back on my game. And in fact, that was my best year.
That's a good lesson. Stay in the game, Poseidon. You have examples too. You have a bad podcast. Well, what is your advice to come back to next week? How do you come back out of it? You had a bad podcast sometimes. Well, maybe not all of it, but some of it. And how do you come back to next week?
You just move on.
Next. That's it.
Going forward, going next shot. The next show I'll be better.
That's how you learn.
I won't be as tired. I'll get some rest or whatever.
Persistent.
Because if you stick, because we do so many podcasts that if you were to get hung up on one episode that was bad, which let's say 95% of the episodes or shows that we do are amazing or good, but if you get hung up on that 5%, it's going to ruin the rest of the 95. So you just move on and you make sure the next one is going to come out good. That's it.
With what are good advice? He's the right guy to be around.
Don't say that. I'm a very bad influence.
You're a very good influence on me in the very bad way you're doing it. Poseidon, any questions for Glenn before we let him go? Because he's a busy man.
No, it was nice having you in our studio.
Well, thank you very much. It was nice to meet you, and this is a fantastic studio you have going
No
here.
problem. Thank you.
All good on to you, sir.
And
Thank you.
we're looking forward to the G-Cast, Glenn Zone. That's coming soon. We know it is. You voice need to be heard out there because you have a lot of wisdom. When we talk about, the things are bad, younger generations don't understand how our experience was when we were younger. So, sometimes we just need to give them some guidance. And thank you for your guidance that you give me all the time at the gym, not just physically.
It's my pleasure, but I also learn from the reaction from you, if I'm doing right or if I'm doing wrong. So you're my...
I'm your rat.
You're my practice.
I'm my practice rat.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good that you are very honest.
But
Thank you.
it's mutual.
It's mutual. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, brothers and sisters. See you in the next one.